Great. Thank you very much, Professor Wang. And I rather liked your opening when the professor talked about stories. And, you know, I think that's the fantastic way to communicate. But in my view, it's about communicating with partners and actually delivering with partnerships. So I'm going to give you like a high-level thought piece around about partnerships in connection with the theme of this conference, Geospatial Intelligence to Drive Quality Development. And I started with, okay, geospatial is absolutely everywhere, isn't it? And I came up with this image by going through Google, dare I say it, but I Googled, give me an image of geospatial is everywhere. And that's the image it came up with. And earlier, as we were all sitting waiting, we saw supermaps images going around. And it's all now pervading throughout society. But what I would like to throw at you as a message is that, yes, GIS, geospatial, the whole ecosystem is now within and around us. So the critical thing actually might be what's underlined here. It's about how we make decisions on the back of all of that we're doing with GIS. It's not applying the technology. That we are starting to do very well, thank you very much. But it's actually decision-making about things that we don't even know the consequences of, because everything's so new, everything's so rapid. So if you like, we're navigating with the challenges in what I believe are lots of challenges in this world. And I'll unpack that a little bit as we go on. And, you know, partnership comes from that fantastic bit of global partnership through all those countries that came up with the Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. That's how we know about the 2030 Agenda. And it's all about people. That's the crux of those goals. But when we talk in today, and in fact for over the last 2 days, the context is the challenges I mentioned, and I'll pick up them on a minute, but also this business about geospatial intelligence. And in my mind, that's why partnerships matter so much to address those first 2 bullet points. So to try and convince you of my thinking, I'm going to just first of all go through what FIG is really about. FIG is the acronym for the International Federation of Surveyors. So I'm just going to explain to you, for those in the room that don't know, what we are, and then how, as a federation, we shape the future. And then I'm going to get back to that partnerships, particularly when I'm talking about geospatial, and then I'll close. So let's go through FIG quite quickly, because I think you'll get the gist fast enough. But we are a federation of member organizations, and we have members in about 115 countries around the world. And I'm so pleased when I look at the program today of the internationals that are in the room, because many of those internationals, Indonesia, South Korea, Philippines, Thailand, Kenya, as well as Malaysia and Serbia, and I even saw Mexico there, are also members of FIG, actually. And our members, you can see the acronyms, they're the Chinese members that I pulled out, but it's about member associations, academics, so the universities, as well as the corporations such as Supermap. You know, obviously I'm here because of them today. And the contribution we make as a federation, if you like, is about knowledge. It's not just about generating knowledge, of which we do quite a lot of, it's also outreaching, be it to society or even amongst ourselves, in order to, and there's 3 bullets there, professional standards, It's the institutional, I mean, all of the things that we do in our broad family of surveying, and I'll come back to that in a minute, as well as global outreach and regional outreach. And we do this by organising ourselves in, if you like, different disciplines as listed here. Everybody in the land profession, the built environment profession, natural resources, geospatial, finds a home in one of these, what we call commissions. And you can skim down it and probably find something that's relevant to you. And here I've just, because we are talking geospatial, the whole ecosystem of data, I've just focused here on 2 of our commissions, one of which is about spatial information management, and the other is the appraisers and the valuation. I pulled those 2 out because they're both members of FIG. We have the Chinese appraisers and we have the spatial information, and we've got our corporate partner here of Supermap. And so I'll come back to that. But at the bottom, as you can see, it's all about developing capacity. Because if we don't develop capacity, and here's the nub, we will not stay relevant to those whom we serve, which is society. And society are our clients, effectively. And we can do everything that we do as a federation with the council. And we have Professor Diane, who's going to be joining my council, and I'm very pleased about that. But we have task forces, which I'll talk about in a minute, the commissions you've just seen, and networks, including a standards network and some permanent institutions. I list those because there is so much going on. And some of our networks, one of them is the Young Surveyor Network. And that is all about, dare I say, I hate to be ageist, but anybody under 35 is in the Young Surveyor Network. And that's crucial to bring the young people into our profession. So what I say is what we do is through collective action, collective generation of knowledge. So it's in partnerships between ourselves in the global community in order to tackle these challenges that we're all facing in society, in the professions, governments. These are the key challenges that are facing us at the moment. So I would say the next decade, if not the one after and the one after that, is we started with the Sustainable Development Goals, and we, in 2030, supposedly should be able to achieve them. Well, there's going to be more than 2030. We've got many years on from that, and Professor Yan, I'm sure, is going to touch on that in the next speech. But are we still relevant? That's the question. Are we relevant or not? I think we are, because of this expertise in geospatial and surveying, as long as we remain purposeful. We have a purpose and we have intent in order to deliver to society. So let me unpack that a little bit for you as far as FIG is concerned with shaping the future. And I hope you realise when I say FIG, I mean us all. We're a federation. It's not just an entity. It's you, it's me, it's all our colleagues out there. So FIG is a collective. So we have 4 years whereby we get a work plan together and we try and do things. I preside over this work plan, which is for a 4-year period starting last year. I will hand over in January 2027. In order to achieve and deliver as a collective, I have a vision. There it is, serving society, benefiting people and planet. But you know, it's great to have visions, isn't it? What are we going to do about this wonderful vision? Well, what I'm suggesting is we're going to tackle some of those challenges. So that's the action. A vision is a lovely thing to head for, but in order to actually deliver, you're going to have things that you can hook onto. And the task forces and the commissions, etc., will be doing that. And if you like, our work plan then, I like to call them pillars. So you can see those pillars there. And they are drawn from UN Habitat, because UN Habitat has the Sustainable Development Diagram that you can see. And it talks about people and partnership and planet and peace and prosperity. Well, I've used a couple of those words so that we can focus on what we do. And I'd just like to share with you which of those pillars are particularly pertinent for our discussion today. So clearly, one of the first, and these are in no particular order, but it's called Pillar 1, is on planet. And this is about what you do every day in your working lives. We make the best use of land and marine resources. It could be in cities, it could be in rural areas, but the point is that we have to really understand the climate agenda right now, as we all know. And GIS, geospatial, is a key for that, and we were hearing that a lot yesterday. So I've got some task forces in order to really throw out some knowledge, bring knowledge back in for our community. There's one on 2030 agenda and the SDGs, and there's one on climate, and you can see the chairs of that. Another pillar, people. And that, for me, is about diversity and inclusion in our profession, because there are various generations in the profession. Remember, one of those challenges I put up right at the beginning is demographics in society. And I had a great conversation with Dr. Young yesterday on demographics, but that's another story. So it's about making sure that we do not leave behind anybody in our own profession, that they are all, regardless of the generation, up to speed with, in this case, geospatial. Dare I say, the older ones amongst us are perhaps not quite so good at GIS as the younger ones. So let's not leave anybody behind. Let's really take the expertise from all of the generations in furthering what we do to remain relevant in society. And then at the bottom, there's another task force. We've got task force roles in trends in geospatial information ecosystem. Some of you may know Professor Abbas Rajabafard, who's based down in Australia. But we also have, as I say, another task force there on the inclusion and diversity in the profession. And those pillars, and there were more, and I'll come back to the partnership one in a minute, they are represented, if you like, really brought out in each of our working weeks. FIG, the whole community, meets once every year as a community. There's lots of other little meetings, but there's one big one. And we were in Orlando last year. This year it was Accra. And Professor Yan, I'm going to embarrass you because that's when you were elected. And next year we're going to be in Brisbane. And then the year after it will be Cape Town. But the exciting thing is we also have regional meetings. And we're going to be in Nepal, of which you're all invited, of course, in November. And that's going to focus specifically on the Asia region. We will have a Young Surveyors one-day event, followed by 2 days of discussion on land administration, disaster management, and geospatial, the inevitable as well. So you can start, I hope, feeling that we really are a fellowship of professionals in what we do and how we shape, we hope, our contribution to society. So let me now just get on to that point about partnerships in geospatial. And I'm just going to talk about the what and how, because this is, as I say, one of the pillars, and that's what the pillar stands for: effective internal discussion with our members, but also reaching out to the UN family. But a quick pause. Data connectivity and land management. When I say land management, I mean the whole breadth of land management, the land, the built environment and the natural resources. And there are just some critical questions I'd want to throw to you, maybe for discussion as we go through the day. And they're around those things. So in terms of connectivity, as far as data is concerned, and it came out a little bit in our plenary as yesterday. I was listening intently to very good speakers. I would argue, is our connectivity actually lacking as far as society is concerned? You know, we talk about it as if it's all there, but it's continuous. Who is really managing that? How do we handle everything out there in that full gambit of the ecosystem? We're talking about it. We're talking about city management, that Supermap has some very good platforms on. But does society get it across the whole piece? And so that's one thought. The other thought is that governments are very keen to be competitive around the world. But if you don't have, you being the country, a really good infrastructure for your internet, you're not going to be competitive. Do you know, I had my working week, as I said, in Ghana a few weeks ago. I got home, and in my absence, we'd had a storm with lightning, and my house had a lightning strike. It frazzled my internet. I had no internet when I got back home. Can you imagine? I was trying to reach out to all these people I'd met. No internet. 5 days it took to get me back up. So internet is critical infrastructure. You know it. Does society really get it right now? Which is why governments are talking about security of the internet and so on and so forth. Absolutely paramount and needed. So there's another critical question. Are we really making sure there's foolproofing or there's backup plans? And on that internet point, what about data poverty? Not everybody has access to internet. My father comes from Ghana. If I go to northern Ghana, have they got internet? Probably not. Not all the time. So are we an equal world? So all of these things are going to start are already popping up. And yesterday we heard a little bit about standards and the frameworks in terms of what China's doing. Absolutely important, absolutely necessary to get those standards in place, get those frameworks working, and ethics will underpin all of that. So, and I mentioned Commission on Spatial Data Infrastructure, and I mentioned on valuation. Just as an example here are the two of them, and they're working groups. I'll just go through the top one, which you can see that, good. So very much here, they are looking at the things that you're talking about. What is geospatial data as far as our professional, technological, as well as our services? Note that word services. We serve society, we serve clients. So what does that really mean for our profession? The urban-rural issues that are coming up, and again, back to are we an equal society? As well as LADM means land administration domain modelling. I'm not going to detail on that. But the bottom working group in that top text box is Geospatial Next. And this, to me, is a little bit about diversity and inclusion, because this is working with the young surveyors. What is next? I started with that comment at the beginning. We are trying to do the best we can, yet we don't actually know every consequence of what we're doing. So what is next? What does next look like? I'll go very quickly through this one, but it just shows you, this is something called the land management paradigm, but it's the bases of land governance for sustainable development. And everybody finds a home in one of those 4 boxes. Those commissions sit in one of those 4 boxes. But I suppose the bottom bullet is the most important on this slide, and that's with sustainable development, it's actually going to demand, underline, there will be a demand for comprehensive data and information. That's where you and I come in terms of the geospatial, in terms of the ecosystem. So if we don't get it right, there's going to be some real problems across all of our sector. This is big, so that you can have a quick snapshot view before I go into the next slide. It's known as the butterfly diagram, because on the left is the cadastre, and on the right, you've got the spatial enabled, if you like, government. And in between is the SDI. And what it's basically saying is that in order to be joined up is back to the spatial data infrastructure in the middle that makes that happen. So land cadastre and spatial data infrastructure are actually just entwined, that you can't split the two out anymore. So just a couple more slides on partnership. And this is just to give you back the flavour, if you like, what FIG does with the UN, because they really do see the benefits of us as a federation, the fact that we're global. And we talk to them, and we've done a lot of work with them in valuation, which is known as appraisals, in unregistered lands, the informal market. We have observer status in the Geospatial Society, along with the ICA and a couple of other organisations, and we work in the regions. So in Africa, in fact, ICA and Africa region and UNGGIM last year had a joint or parallel meeting. This year it's in Mexico, wherever the Mexico representative is in the room. There you go. You got a high-level forum in October in Mexico for UNGGIM. And so every year the regionals also roll out, and our members in FIG go to these places, which is important. You know, there's something here, and I suppose because I was coming here to China, you know, the unit, the first unit, there's 3 now, the first one was established in China, and that's the Geospatial Knowledge and Innovation Centre, and we heard from Dr. Lee yesterday about that in some detail. But there's one in Bonn just opened on geodetic, and the Republic of Saudi Arabia is rolling out that one at the bottom there. So lots of collaboration going on. I just throw this up because there's also the World Urban Forums. And again, impressed, because World Urban Forums is all about UN Habitat and the cities, etc. And every 2 years they have a meeting. They've got one in Egypt this year. But in 2008, they were in Nanjing, which I didn't know until I did my homework. So, you know, the World Urban Forum goes around the globe, and professionals like you and I go to them and engage and do what we do. A bit of homework I did in terms of UN and the China office, so I hope that's right, because I had to do the homework. I didn't have that answer, but a lot going on with UN Habitat, China office, and China too. Right, well, I'll come to my closing words. I think the chair will be quite happy about this, because I am probably just going a bit over time. Yeah, well, I started with this about tackling these global challenges, and it's about people. And if we don't get it right, society, you know, is going to think we're not very relevant, quite frankly. Back to, though, our conference theme, you know, if we are purposeful, we have purpose, then I think we can drive quality, underlined. Again, we heard that in the plenaries, quality development. As long as we keep looking to societal contributions and looking to our people, which is our profession, and that can only be done in partnerships. So, yeah, I will start closing here. We can strengthen our skills. We are here today to discuss that. If we do our very, very best, it's tricky, it's not easy, but if we do, I think we've got a good journey. It is far-reaching, but there's a chance of us being very successful. Thank you.